Fame has a strange way of masking heartbreak. Under studio lights, smiles never falter, lines never shake, and tears are choreographed to fall on cue. But when the lights go out, the scripts end, and real life begins. Pain doesn't wait for retakes. For Candice Bergen, the woman who once dominated primetime television and became a cultural symbol of independence, tragedy crept quietly through the walls of her home. She didn't lose love once, but twice. And both times, the world barely noticed, as she stood by the bedside of a dying husband, holding his hand until the last breath. To millions, she was Murphy Brown, sharp-tongued, sophisticated, and unbreakable. But behind the curtain, Candice was living a story that no network would ever dare to write. The story of how one of Hollywood's brightest stars became the silent witness to two men's final battles with disease and somehow found the strength to begin again. Born in 1946, Candice came into a world already glowing with cameras and charm. Her father, Edgar Bergen, was one of America's most famous ventriloquists, a man who could make audiences laugh by speaking through a puppet named Charlie McCarthy. Her childhood was an odd mix of privilege and loneliness, surrounded by laughter that wasn't always real. She grew up watching her father talk to dolls, while her mother, a former model, tried to maintain the perfect family image. The young Candice learned early that performance was power. It could hide pain, shape perception, and buy love. That lesson carried her straight into the spotlight. In her 20s, she became a symbol of effortless grace, part model, part intellect, entirely captivating. Hollywood courted her quickly, but she was never content being the beautiful blonde who said little and smiled much. She wanted more. She wanted to challenge what television thought women could be. And when Murphy Brown came along in 1988, Candice grabbed the role like destiny itself. As Murphy, she became the fearless face of female ambition. The newsroom scenes crackled with energy, and her delivery was surgical, witty, unfiltered, commanding. America fell in love with her, but not everyone approved. In 1992, then Vice President Dan Quayle attacked the show for portraying a single mother undermining family values. Overnight, Candice became the center of a political storm she never asked for. For weeks, newspapers screamed her name. The White House itself had turned a TV character into a national controversy. Behind closed doors, Candice felt suffocated. "I just wanted to be a gopher and go underground," she later admitted. It was ironic. The woman who played a fearless journalist couldn't even defend herself without feeding the fire. Yet through the noise, she kept filming, kept smiling, kept being Murphy Brown. What no one realized was that her real battles were just beginning, and they had nothing to do with politics. While the world debated her fictional choices, Candice's real heart belonged to a French filmmaker named Louis Malle. He was brilliant, unpredictable, and bursting with ideas that blurred the line between cinema and art. They met in the late 1970s, when she was already a household name, and he was one of France's most acclaimed directors. To her surprise, she felt small in his presence, but safe. "When you're advanced in life, your antenna goes up," she said. "And when we met, we both felt it, a deep connection." They married in 1980. Theirs was not a Hollywood marriage. It was a union of two thinkers, two creators. Their daughter, Chloe, was born soon after, and for a while, their lives were a beautiful balancing act. She filmed in Los Angeles while he worked in France. They met in New York between projects, trading time zones for affection. It was complicated but passionate, a love story built on trust more than proximity. But time, as always, had other plans. In the early 1990s, Louis underwent major heart surgery. When he recovered, doctors found something far worse: lymphoma. The diagnosis dropped like a bomb in their carefully constructed world. Lymphoma, a cancer of the lymphatic system, does not play fair. It creeps, multiplies, and consumes silently. For a man of such huge intellect, the idea of his body betraying him was unbearable. For Candice, the realization was devastating. "It's like your life is hijacked overnight," she confessed. "You have no choice but to surrender to the disease because the person you love is fighting for their life." Every day became a cycle of medication, hospital visits, whispered reassurances, and quiet panic. Louis, the visionary, grew weaker. The man who once directed actors with precision could barely lift his pen. Candice watched as his world shrank from sets and cameras to hospital rooms and IV drips. She was not Murphy Brown here. She was simply a wife trying to keep her family together. In November 1995, Louis Malley passed away at 63. Candice was beside him, holding his hand, whispering words he could no longer respond to. Their daughter was 10. The silence after his death was deafening. She returned to Los Angeles, not as a star, but as a widow, one who now had to explain to her child why the sun wouldn't rise in France anymore. Hollywood tried to pull her back into the spotlight. Offers came, scripts arrived, but Candice couldn't fake the lightness her roles demanded. She worked just enough to survive emotionally. The woman who had once commanded the screen now sought refuge in quiet. "I thought I'd had my great love," she once said softly. "I didn't expect another." But fate, relentless as ever, had one more twist waiting. 5 years after losing Louis, Candice met Marshall Rose, a New York real estate developer, known not for fame, but for integrity. He wasn't an artist or a celebrity. He was a builder, a man whose joy came from creating, not performing. Their meeting was unplanned, their connection instant. "I just thought, I trust this man completely," she recalled. By dessert on their first dinner, she already felt safe again, a feeling she hadn't known in years. They married in 2000, and for the first time, Candice began to believe in ordinary happiness. Marshall was calm, grounded, the opposite of everything Hollywood ever offered. On movie sets, she was the star. At home, she was simply Candice. Her co-star, Sandra Bullock, remembered watching Marshall visit her on the set of Miss Congeniality that year. "He touched her face so gently," Bullock recalled. "We were all standing there, thinking, wow, that's what love looks like." For 2 decades, Candice lived the life she had always wanted, private, steady, content. But just as she settled into peace, the universe tested her once more. Marshall began showing signs of Parkinson's disease, a slow, relentless disorder that robs the body of control but leaves the mind painfully aware. She had already walked this road before. The hospital visits, the trembling hands, the slow loss of mobility. It was all heartbreak on repeat. Parkinson's doesn't announce its timeline. It creeps, day by day, stealing motion, balance, and speech. Candice watched as the man who had once built skylines struggled to lift a glass. Yet again, she became caretaker, nurse, emotional anchor, all while the world saw her only as a screen legend aging gracefully. No one saw the nights she sat awake beside him, whispering reassurance as he slept. After nearly 25 years of marriage, Marshall Rose passed away in February 2025, surrounded by his family. He was 88. The house fell silent once again. She had lost another husband, another chapter, another piece of her heart. 2 loves, 2 losses. The same cruel ending, only years apart. At 79, Candice stood once more at the edge of reinvention. Her daughter, grown and thriving, encouraged her to return to work, not for fame, but for purpose. And so she did. She took on selective roles, projects that spoke to her soul rather than her status. In interviews, she laughed easily, even when talking about mortality. She revealed that she had survived 2 minor strokes years earlier. "I'm fine now," she said with her trademark wit. "But I know that I could suddenly keel over any moment." The honesty shocked fans. But that was Candice, elegant, candid, unafraid of the truth. She often joked that 88 was her target age. Anything beyond, she said, would be greedy. Beneath the humor was wisdom. She had already lived lifetimes within one. Candice Bergen's story isn't one of tragedy alone. It's a portrait of endurance, of a woman who rose to fame, stood through political storms, lost 2 great loves, and still managed to smile when the cameras rolled again. She didn't just play resilience, she lived it. And perhaps that's her greatest legacy. She showed that beauty isn't about youth, that fame isn't about noise, and that love, real love, means staying until the end, even when it hurts. She once said that every role she ever played was a reflection of something she had survived. Looking back now, it's easy to see what she meant. The woman behind Murphy Brown was never just acting strong. She was teaching us what strength looks like when no one's watching. What part of Candice Bergen's story shocked you the most? And if you thought this story was powerful, wait until you see what happened to another Hollywood legend who also loved deeply and lost everything twice.